And I have Garrison Cohen with me, everyone. And
Hey,
we're
Linda.
gonna, hey, how are you?
Hey.
Forgot to even say hello. And so we're talking about everything is love. Tell us a little more, Garrison.
When it really comes down to it, and you look at all of the conflict in the world, all of the misunderstandings in the world, all of the anger and resentment and hunger and everything that's happening. And the hunger, it's so multifaceted, people who are hungry. But the
Right?
point is that everything is love, all else is a misunderstanding because
Love that.
either we're moving towards love or we are in a response from not feeling love, from feeling disconnected from love, from feeling disconnected from the original mother in
Right.
the sense, because
Yes.
we come into the world and we're born through our mother. And then we
Mm-hmm.
are at some point separated from our mother. And that can happen on a lot of different levels, but that can create trauma and pain and confusion. And people spend their entire lives trying to make up for that
Yeah.
and compensating for that. And it can
Mm-hmm.
show up in some pretty horrendous ways when you look at choices world leaders are making right now.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so, but ultimately, everything is love, even if it's an inverted version of love, which
Yeah,
is acting out in destructive ways.
for sure. Everything is light.
Yeah,
Everything else is the shadow.
yeah.
Right? Yeah. And Jenny Langren's from Sweden, and she talks a lot about like vulnerability, and when we're not being vulnerable, we aren't able to connect with each other. And
Mhm.
she said in Sweden we're starving for connection, and I yeah, it's pretty much the world over these days. COVID didn't help. COVID actually did help. We kind of woke up to how starved we really are.
Yeah,
Mm,
yeah.
cool. Yeah, so there's hate, there's conflict, there's pressure, there's stories. Tell us a little bit more what your thoughts are there. It's coming up for you when you think about that.
If you have hate for something, if you feel conflict with something, if you're feeling pressure around something, or or just have a story or a judgment about something, if you really look at it, in some way,
Mm-hmm.
there's a way that you are trying to find your way back to love through that, even if it's misguided, even if it's twisted, even if it's um, just a totally negative path.
Okay.
One of the one of the fascinating things about humans is that as human beings, we are designed to not be able to make any choices that don't result in us feeling better.
Yes, sir. My background is special education. I worked in a psychiatric day treatment center. Like, I am so tracking with what you're saying right now because
Right?
all behavior is communication.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And anything that you could think of doing to even prove that wrong would only be proving it right because it would be making you feel better.
Nice.
And so there's no way around it. And so that desire to feel better is in alignment with wanting to find our way back to love. And like I said, as misguided and negative and misled as it is, it's
Mm-hmm.
all trying to find its way back home.
And that's when we really are in alignment too.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. We find our way
Exactly.
back to love.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay. So original separation. Of course, that leads me to like original sin. Uh, Original separation. Because like you came in pretty darn connected and aware of it. Not that kids don't come in, they're super connected, especially these days. And they are staying awake. So you came in at a time when they most kids didn't stay awake. So how do you
Yeah,
see that
it's
original
true.
separation?
It's true. I mean, I notice in the kids today, they're coming in awake and they're staying awake,
Yeah, I love
which
that part.
which is beautiful and fantastic,
Yeah.
and thank God for that. And I think I was part of kind of the early crew that, it wasn't as many
Nope.
coming in that were came in very awake and stayed awake. And I think there were times where I really lost myself and other times where I would find myself, but it was always very strong in that I would feel different because I was open to what this journey was really meant to be. And it felt very
Yeah.
different for me
You
than
were
for others around me, at least.
you were here to experience the experience.
Yeah. I mean, we all are. I was
Yeah,
just
you just knew it.
aware of it as it was happening. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool. And so when you think about the original separation, how would you just define it in a few words? What is it?
Yeah. I mean, it's on a few levels. One is just the original separation from source.
Yeah,
We're
of
as
falling asleep.
as we're born, we're yes, we kind of fall we kind of fall asleep to who and what we really are.
Yep.
And then we're also separated from the mother, and we're off into the world. And for some people that separation is so hard and so harsh that
Yes.
it's profoundly traumatizing.
Yep.
For other people it's not as, and yet there's no way around it. There is an original separation from the mother, and then we have to make our own way in the world and find ourselves.
Yeah. And if that's not done appropriately, you get into like even attachment disorders. And when I worked at the psychiatric day treatment center, there was a boy there with such strong attachment disorder with stuff going on that he literally would not and could not walk in it. You couldn't walk behind him without him having to turn around and face you and walk backwards. He couldn't have you behind him. You had to see what you were doing at all times.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it's very wounded.
So there's a original separation for you. And a quick story. We had lock time out at that time. That it was in the day. And so the behavior manager had him all settled down and came and got me, and he said, he had the discussion with him, like what was with all this explosive hitting everyone behavior, and he didn't want to do his packet, his work. And so I sat down with him, and first thing I said is, you don't have to do your packet. And the behavior manager was just like, I was spent all this time calming this kid down. Do not start this thing again. And the kid goes, oh, okay. I said, if you just did one thing though, which one would it be? And he's like, he pointed, and I put that to the side and I said, if it was just like one more thing, what would it be? And he pointed, I put it to the side. It was like my soul exercise or something right there. And we literally put his packet back together. And there were a couple of things, the things he didn't want to do, he had outgrown them. He was off in another classroom, and this was like my stuff I had set up for the teacher to execute. And this kid just kind of got ahead of both of us. And he actually ended up with more in his packet than what he was balking about. So yeah, even with the kid like that, you can still connect and
right.
get
Yeah.
oneness.
Something that I've heard from many different angles and perspectives is that all addiction goes back to separation. And the addiction itself is to compensate for the separation and the emptiness that they feel in that way. So whether it's porn or food or drugs or relationships or anything else that it could be, it really goes back to separation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we live in a world where there's no reason for that.
Right.
We have everything we need to have everybody feel connected. And when I work with entrepreneurs, as I work with them and help connect the dots and have them get how connected they are,
right,
it's almost like they start to come online. It's like their whole system, like, because until we feel connected, our energetic system is compensating for that missing piece, and it's a huge energy drain.
It's a huge energy.
Connected, then we can really be here in the way that we want to, and it's a game changer.
Yeah, and with addiction, there's the biochemistry of it as well. And I used to work with mostly moms, helping to pull their kids out of various labels: ADD, ADHD, learning disabilities, autism, and doing it biochemically and with different therapies and stuff from various providers. And yeah, it's just amazing. Like, go back to like alcohol, the cells, they kind of like open up because of the alcohol, and there's an actual drug that kind of fills the cell up so it doesn't even need the alcohol anymore. And that, I guess, if they take somebody through detox, then maybe they put them on that for the detox, but definitely have them on it afterwards. And it's just so fascinating. Smoking's like that too. The cell opens up, and then the tobacco is what brings the wholeness, if you will. And so there's like some juice from the jungle that you can drink that changes that chemistry like back to healthy, normal. It's really fascinating.
That is amazing. Whole world. Yeah.
So thank you so much, Garrison. This has been great.
Thank you, Linda.